Hi, I'm Lindsay Weisner from the Neurotic Nourishment podcast. I'm a psychologist, an author.
Mom, where's my math book?
It's in the kitchen. Neurotic Nourishment is a podcast for smart, sweary women.
Mom, we're gonna be late. We don't have to be there for another 40 minutes. But I don't want to be late.
Neurotic Nourishment is a podcast where smart, sweary women can talk about real issues that matter. The truth is...
Mom, she punched me. He said I poured too much milk. She did pour too much milk. Mom, where do babies come from? Sex.
Neurotic Nourishment is a podcast where smart, sweary women talk about shit that matters. The truth is, no matter what we accomplish in our professional lives, for better or worse, we are always moms first.
Mom.
She's fat and ugly, isn't she? Oops.
I just got yes, Krista Tippett is fat and ugly. But she interviews a lot of I recommend the podcast actually. It's one of my favorites to listen to. It's about philosophy and stuff and bullshit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We like philosophy and bullshit, right?
Meh. Yeah. I feel like it's a bunch of old white men in robes, flagellating or masturbating. So, meh, whatever.
Yeah, I'm into that.
I think we're all. Are we all into
flagellating and masturbating?
I'm into definitely into old white men self-flagellating. They can masturbate on their own time.
Right, but that's usually about fear. I feel like a lot of white men are really old white men are fearful. So
no, we're not.
They have fear boners.
You think they're not? I think they're totally. Really? No, they're scared that. Well,
Max, as our resident old white man,
yes, ma'am.
Do you have a fear boner?
Not currently.
Do you want one?
Like a metaphorical one? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
No, I'm good, man. Welcome to the Pod Pod Cvlt Cast, where we talk about life, love, learning, and libido, and share our journey through polyamory and kink. I'm Max.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Chasten.
And I'm Eric.
This is a podcast where we talk about love and relationships, sex and kink, and polyam issues, and whatever else comes up. While we talk about those things, we'll probably also touch on stuff like abuse and violence and mental health challenges. These can be difficult topics, so keep that in mind moving ahead.
So hi, today we have a special guest. Our special guest is Dr. Lindsay Weisner, and she's a clinical psychologist who lives in Long Island, New York. So she's come down here to Richmond, Virginia to sit with us in our living room. Not at all. This is absolutely a remote interview.
I totally would because I love DC, Virginia area. So.
We're
not DC.
I know where you are. Whatever.
Well,
if you want to come down, you can actually come down and sit in our living room anytime. You just give me a call. And she graduated from Georgetown, so that's why she loves the DC area.
Uh-huh.
And she was awarded a fellowship from the National Institute of Health, correct?
Correct, in child and family development research.
And which is really awesome because, we think a lot about how polyamory affects our children, and hopefully that's something that we'll talk about in this episode. I'm looking forward to that. And she received her doctorate from CW and went on to pursue her postdoctorate training from the American Institute of Psychoanalysis, and is the current host of the Neurotic Nourishment podcast, which is really awesome. We've been listening to it and enjoying it. Who's your co-host?
Sharon Sapir.
So, and she is a nutritionist.
Correct.
They have a good time on that podcast. You should absolutely check out the Neurotic Nourishment podcast. Lindsay, what is your Instagram? Because you do some fun stuff on your Instagram.
Oh my God, I do a lot of stuff. My personal is at PsycHrinkMom. I also have one for the podcast, which is at Neurotic Nourishment. And I also have a book coming out in March, and that is at 10 Steps Finding Happy is the Instagram account.
And that's on the International Day of Happiness, right?
It is, and I say this all the time, but I'm totally convinced there were a bunch of old guys, actually maybe not so old, but like former hippies sitting around and being like, what would be cool? And I think there was weed involved in creating that day. But I'm still fine because, all right, book was chosen to represent it. So yay.
Well, Eric, as our resident pot smoker, your parents are hippies. Do you think that they had anything to do with creating the International Day of Happiness?
Not at all, because one of them's not a hippie, he's a biker.
Oh, he's a biker.
Hell yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You have only one resident pot smoker?
Well, like,
Yeah,
he's our resident weed guy, and then Max is our drinky dude.
Hell yeah.
Hannah is like our crafty baker.
Yes, wholesome thrills only.
Yeah.
I kind of want to take care of Hannah, but Hannah, my
you
neck,
make good drinks too.
but not like there's something wrong with her. Just like I kind of want to care for her, and
Everybody says that. What's wrong with Hannah?
nothing. But so here's what. So we just moved into a house, and there's actually room in the basement for an arts and crafts room.
What?
And yeah, don't even get me fucking started.
So moving to Long Island?
Yeah, nope. Trust me.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
But I really want to. My son is very tech, science, and science, technology, STEM, whatever it is, and my daughter is dramatic singing pain in my butt.
Ooh.
But so I really want to create this art room. Okay, it's 6 feet by. It's a closet, but fuck it, I want to do it. So I think that's why I want to protect Hannah, because she can tell me how to do this.
Oh my gosh, you actually need the four of us, because between the four of us, we have music, construction, technology, and also you can borrow our son because he's
What are you doing right now?
Loaning out.
Selling the sun. Leave her alone.
He's 19. It's fine. He's into electronic music and video game stuff and a lot of computery stuff that we don't know. So, because he helped us set up our podcast stuff.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely, the four of us could come up. It could be kind of like Queer Eye, except it would be polyamorous eye, monogamous,
Closet.
parent. And
But would you be willing to pimp out? Yeah. Can you pimp out your son to me for the purpose of helping me?
yes, I will. He's $18,000 a month.
Ooh.
That sounds about right. I mean, I'm just kidding.
We are not selling our child or pimping him out. There's no trafficking that is happening here.
There is
That
also
pretty
no
clear.
association with polyamory and non-monogamous relationships and pimping out your child.
Exactly.
whatsoever.
Polyamorous people do not traffic children or children over 18. So there's often ever.
None of the ones
Good
that
legal
I've-
These
stuff.
are
Good legal
thanks. All right, because you did that, you have to ask us the first question.
Okay, so I have been stalking you all because that's what I do. Yeah. I'm a bit OCD, a lot ADD, but finally medicated, which just makes me a frantic OCD person. And so obsessive. And so one of the episodes I was listening to, you were talking about what I interpreted as sort of misconceptions about normie / non-monogamous normie / monogamous relationships, where and it only stuck with me because I work with suicidal teens a lot, and so I think it's important to make this distinction. But so what you said, there was something along the lines of that it's thought of as we're expected to only want sexually, physically, emotionally one person for the rest of our lives,
Right.
and I don't feel that way. Personally,
Good.
I do think that I think that, and again, this strikes me because of my teenage suicidal patients. I think that there's a difference between thoughts and actions. And so 100%, my husband will never admit it, but he'll never listen to it. I think we both are definitely attracted to other people. We don't act on it for a variety of probably deeply rooted psychological reasons, different from each of us. But I don't think that means that we don't feel that way. And I mention this because again, with suicidal patients, a lot of times, especially with teenagers, if you say, I feel like I don't want to live anymore, the first thing that a school psychologist or a school social worker or a guidance counselor does is it's like Arkham Asylum, like off to the, someone got that joke. Who got that joke?
Hannah.
That's me.
Hannah,
I love you. My husband used to work for literally he used to work for like the SVU of Miami. I'm sorry, of where am I? New York, like Manhattan. I grew up in Florida. Yeah. And he was
sorry. Are you?
What?
I said we're sorry that you grew up in Florida.
I am too, but it's South Florida, so it's north. It's not like North Florida, which is the South. So
we only have one listener who has ever like been maybe in Florida. So,
and did they survive?
Yes, but it's like Miami area. So
we've also
it doesn't count.
been to Florida. And
No,
please continue.
So he was like, the head of Arkham Asylum, trying to decide who was fit and not fit to stand trial and all that crazy stuff. And it was a very interesting job for him to have. But I also felt like, how do I explain this? We want an easy answer to everything. And so we want to equate feelings with actions. And that's not how this works. And that's how teens end up, and adults too, spending like 8 hours in a psych eval with extremely educated, extremely well-trained clinicians who have zero experience. So
right.
I like to make the distinction between thoughts and actions, both with suicidal teens. And also, I think in this case, what struck me was just as far as normies, monogamous, etc. goes. Okay,
so basically what we were saying was attraction doesn't turn off when you start a relationship with somebody.
Oh shit.
Right. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So the analogy that you're making is just like suicidal thoughts don't equate suicidal actions and don't equate a suicidal plan. Attraction thoughts or being attracted to somebody don't automatically equate you're going to try to fuck them, right?
100%. And I don't, but if that sounded judgy, I don't mean it. I'm just.
It doesn't sound judgy at all.
No,
it doesn't sound judgy at all. I think that's an important
distinction that we all make.
We all make that distinction as well.
I think what you said right up top was that your husband would never admit that he's still attracted to other people.
Exactly.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about this societal expectation and this learned behavior that you are not supposed to ever be attracted to anyone else. If you're a monogamous person, hide it, put it away, don't talk about it. You're still having those feelings.
Yep.
And it sucks to repress it, dude. Like, you should be able to at least admit that you're still attracted to other people, especially if you're not going to act on it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's shameful to say, I think that person is pretty or attractive. It's the same as being able to admit that you masturbate because it's part of sexual health and it's part of self-care.
Also, it's kind of fun to
masturbate.
Yeah. Well, that's not where I was going with it, but that was a long distance high five there. No, what I was going to say is that it's kind of fun to, like with a partner, be like, hey, that chick's kind of hot.
It's also fun to masturbate with partners.
Yeah, that too.
But I do think that sometimes we're missing out on sharing a really important part of ourselves, which is what we find attractive and like the conversations about, what's intriguing to us, that if we could be open to it, if it wasn't a barrier to our existing relationships, we could be enjoying those things together instead of enjoying them in secret and guilt.
Yeah.
I agree. I also think I have a tough time explaining the whole concept of fantasy to some of my patients. Because when I say fantasy, I mean it in a very Freudian way of like, it's not something that like when I say, well, maybe that's a fantasy about if your husband dies, XYZ. And I don't mean you want him to die. I simply mean that
those are the rules of that scenario.
Right. And we all have imaginations.
We do.
For a reason, because otherwise we'd be bored as fuck. So,
right.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is actually a concept that, we personally struggle with in our particular pod, trying to explain to one another feelings versus actions.
Sure.
Feelings are things that happen internally. Feelings don't define us. They are not who we are. And sometimes we have feelings that we need to express, but that doesn't mean that we need somebody to do something with them. And actions are a different thing. And feelings don't mean that somebody has done something wrong. And feelings are not things that other people cause within us. They are just reactions based on our bodies and our past and the patterns of communications that we have, yada, yada, yada. So how can we, in relationships, communicate with our partners our feelings and not have our partners have a reaction, like not cause reactions? I guess I'm asking, like, how can we say, I have a feeling and not have that turn into you're causing this feeling within me, or making that person feel like they caused that feeling? Am I making sense at all?
You are, but I think unfortunately the answer is pick different partners.
Damn it. But I like mine. They're both really sexy.
Everything is sexy, but like really everything forbidden, everything exciting, everything like that people aren't comfortable with, it's all sexy. And by the way, after listening to the episode that I listened to at the gym today, which I can't
Are you going to bring up the cannibalism thing?
Oh no.
Possibly,
You just brought up
but not
yes.
now.
Oh, damn. Okay, never mind.
That was not that time.
But I will. Now it's not that time, but I totally will. I think that what is forbidden is sexy. I think that the things that turn us on are totally based in our childhood. All right, so I'm going to say some controversial things, and
I'm probably going to agree with you based on what I just heard you say.
Controversial things, which was the word?
It was things.
Childhood.
It was things. God damn it. So I think that in my personal and professional experience, there are many women that identify as, hear me out, that identify as lesbians or bisexual or whatnot, that have been, that have a history of sexual abuse. But here's the thing, that shouldn't really matter. It shouldn't, because that's like, listen, if I have sprained my ankle like 8,000 times and finally had to have surgery on it. And it's ridiculous to think that my sprained ankle shouldn't affect my, the rest of my life, or shouldn't affect my views. I think that if you're, I think that our past affects our present and our future. And I think to judge it or to blame it or to declare it is like, it's, I'm trying to appear intelligent, but it's just fucked up. Like, the truth is our past affects our future, and it's supposed to, because there's a reason so many things that are dangerous in society are red or orange or bright colors. It's because we're supposed to learn from the past and to be safer about our future, if that makes sense. So
it does.
But I hear about
no. I have one thought, but then I'm going to turn it over to Hannah, because I feel like Hannah might have thoughts. Do you have thoughts?
Turn it over to everyone, because I feel like I'm
going to shut up. But I have one little thought.
I hope I'm not making anyone feel defensive, and also
Does anybody here feel defensive right now?
Not at all.
No, I'm not a gay or bi woman, so.
No,
Yeah, no.
I will tell you if we're uncomfortable.
But if you were a gay or bi woman, would you? Because I'm
queer and I identify mostly as a lesbian.
You had to say the word queer, which I told you I don't really understand the difference.
Okay, so I am I fall under the bisexual umbrella. I identify as pansexual, which is still under the bisexual umbrella. There's no real big difference there. It's one of those third wave feminism things where we started getting a lot of like tricky stuff about labels.
I'm not sure if I like that.
I know.
It really just sounds like a new version of like Hitler, KKK. Like, it just sounds like
Wow, that was
wow. No, it's not. It's good stuff.
Welcome to Lindsay. No, but I just
it's okay.
I feel like we're dividing stuff that doesn't need to be divided. Like, but go on. So.
Well, basically, it's like when. Like, if you think about the fact that now we have lots of new terms for gender, we also have lots of new terms for sexual expression.
And people are spreading out into that space.
Exactly. So now that people have new terms to define themselves, people are finding themselves. So I identify mostly as a lesbian, but I kind of consider myself homoflexible,
Oh my
i.e.,
God, a new one? And okay,
yeah, I know, it's
No,
okay.
She hadn't even gotten started yet.
Yeah, there are lots of them. I'm sorry, but
No,
but
don't be
here's
sorry. I want to learn, and I also want to question, and I want to
yeah. But here's the great thing. So, homoflexible means my primary sexual preference is people of my same gender, but I will have sexual relations with people of the opposite gender or other genders sometimes if I'm attracted to them.
Okay.
But it's a very low percentage, and that low percentage is sitting in this room. And right now, my sexual partner is Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hi.
Hi. So, yeah. So, and Eric's kind of a lesbian.
What way?
No.
I'm not
This is
sure.
when-
Okay.
literally, this is when I wish we had video because you would see my head tilt like confused cat go, what?
I'm just making
The
a joke. I'm
RCA Victor
sorry.
dog.
It's okay. It's good. It's good.
So yeah. So I identify as mostly lesbian. Queer is a big ol' umbrella term for all of that stuff I just said.
So, question.
Yes. So I was sexually, emotionally, and physically abused as a child
I did hear that. Yeah.
and as an adult. And I don't think that abuse made me queer. I do think that the hyper awareness that is caused in people who are abused, that hypervigilance, and causes a self-awareness that allows people to identify who they are a little sooner.
Okay, so can I challenge that a little?
Yes.
I'm not sure how an early experience of significance of any sort, whether it be good or bad, does not affect the person you become. You know,
I do think it affects the person I become. Absolutely.
That's what makes it a dispute.
Oh.
She said she was going to push back against that.
Oh, okay.
Wait, me? I
Yeah,
said that.
you.
Oh, no, maybe
Well,
I'm
because-
confused.
Because here's the thing. So when you
Is
look
this
at
when I turn it over to Hannah? I'm sorry.
don't shy away.
I'm not shying away.
No,
Yes to the challenge.
Because this is actually, I'm not looking to challenge. I'm looking to educate and also question and also,
Yeah.
you know. So I think that when you look at adoption studies, you find out that I'm going to mess this up, but like people that have been adopted before the age of 5 do super well. Before the age of 7 do really well. Before, you know, like there's different points. Like how old you are when you are adopted into a stable family affects how, quote, well you do. And I honestly don't remember what the wellness quotient is, but I just can't help thinking that like the shit that my parents put me through when I was younger absolutely affects who I am now.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's saying that.
Isn't
we
it?
don't feel that way.
nobody's
We all
disputing
agree,
that.
Kind of
agree
both.
with that, but I think that we all agree that that doesn't affect orientation. That orientation is part of who you are from the onset. From the
Well,
get.
I'll say this: if I did come across a study today that said, "Hey, this one childhood event, or like this one particular trauma, or this one particular, you know, whatever,"
It would be bullshit.
is it consistent for, you know, for whatever the identity is, it would be bullshit. But even if it wasn't, like, I don't think that invalidates or makes it not real, because that's literally how all of life works.
Right.
That's how we become who we are. So if we identified that thing, then I guess we'd just be on teams of like, well, let's solve for it so nobody's ever gay again. Or like, let's let things happen as they naturally do. Like, I really don't think that it matters that much. And I don't think that, like, if we could try to isolate what the cause was, that it would make people's identities less real.
But why would we? Like,
Right.
I don't understand, you know, and this is yes, sometimes I see trends or patterns or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we want to, like, why do we need someone to blame for someone to have a different preference? And if we do, why don't we do
Exactly.
the same thing for blondes, brunettes, redheads,
Mhm.
boobs, asses. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Well, but we do that thing too because, you look at a kid who got, for example, in the kink community, people who like being spanked, 50% of people say, oh, it's because they got spanked too much as a child. And 50% of people say, oh, it's because they never got spanked as a child.
Right.
And so
and there are lots
that.
of people in the kink community who say, I was abused and this is how I'm working through that. And they use it as a type of self-therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is the kink community as per
so the kink community is comprised of people who identify as kinky or having a fetish or involved in BDSM or have a power dynamic, bondage, sadomasochism, dominance, and submission. And they are actively meeting up with other members of other people in a social way to either participate in these activities or just to be friends with them or to interact with them on a romantic or sexual or dating level. That's the kink community. And we are members of the kink community and the polyamorous community.
Okay. And as a psychologist, scientist, human being, how do we decide who gets to be a member of the kink community? Because we all have our fucking kinks.
We all do. And
I'm not, it sounded aggressive. I'm really not. I'm just,
no, it's not. Anybody is a
aggressive.
member of the kink community. It's just like any community. It's like
Fight
your
Club
neighborhood.
with more kilts.
If somebody
and-
moves
Don't
into
talk
the
about
neighborhood,
Yeah.
it's like your neighbor. If somebody moves into your neighborhood, if they start participating in your neighborhood activities and start coming to neighborhood watch meetings, then they feel like part of your neighborhood. But if they just move into the neighborhood and they never say hi and all the people in the neighborhood are just not interacting with them, then they live there, but they're maybe not part of it. But they could be thinking about your neighborhood and maybe doing neighborhood things in their house, but you just don't know.
Doing neighborhood things.
Maybe they're just
in
I
your
know.
neighborhood.
secretly blowing, maybe
Oh my
secretly
God, Mr.
raking
Rogers
everybody's
going
leaves.
through my head, and I'm like, oh, Mr. Rogers, that's all I can think of. But I think most people don't talk about their kinks, and also I'm totally forgetting, but compersions mean
Compersion means, some people say it's the opposite of jealousy. I think it really doesn't have anything to do with jealousy.
Right. It's being happy for the happiness of your partner.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
Even if that happiness is with another partner or with
Yes.
another person.
I don't know what I think of that as a psychologist, as a person, as a jealous as fuck woman. I'm not sure, but I respect that it has a name.
Well, somebody, where did I read this the other day? Who completely leaving out compersion, which is kind of a word that we made up, used confelicity, which
What
is
was
a much
the word again?
confelicity,
Oh.
just to say I am sharing in the happiness of others, and that makes it neutral. Anytime that you're just participating in communal joy, and I was like, oh yeah, that's been a word. It's not a term that we just coined. That's a real thing that people have experienced. But I think when we try to apply it to jealousy and we try to apply it to our partnerships, then our brain just rejects the concept that we're used to in so many other circumstances. Oh no, that doesn't seem possible, because we see a necessary competition in it.
Yeah. Max and Hannah, do I have your consent to share where you,
I think that's amazing to ask, yeah.
because I have a compersion/jealousy example to give.
Yeah, sure,
Max
sure.
and Hannah say yes.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Share
so
away.
last night, Max and Hannah had a hotel date. They went to a hotel and had sexy times at the hotel, right? So this is not a thing that Max and I would have. So that was so that's a thing that Max and I don't have. So inside of me, I am a jealous person. So inside of me, there are jealous feelings that can inspire. But on the flip side of that, I was like, hey, Hannah, take the speaker from my car. Maybe you want some LED candles. Make sure you hide the remote so the TV doesn't come on.
Oh, did you hide the remote?
We were telling
Oh,
there were multiple televisions.
I was like, I hope you have a good time. What are your, where are you going to go to dinner? And then when she came back today, I was like, did you have a nice time? And she was like, yes, it was so nice. And I was really happy for them that they had time away and that they had time to connect with each other in a place that was not our group home because the three of us lived together. And they had the freedom to express themselves sexually without worrying about like what I might hear or how I might feel about it. And I think that's great. Like, because, their sex life is really important part of their relationship. And so I feel compersion or complicity about their happiness and joy and their love together. I also feel jealousy about like me not having that type of thing, but also that's not a thing that I want. So
wait, why is that not a thing that you want?
Because it's just not a thing that I want. That's just not the type of relationship that I have.
With me specifically.
Yeah.
With Max specifically.
With Max specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. That was an element left out.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't mean to be like a Geraldo. I was just like, wait, I don't
No,
know.
no. And that's why I was making sure
But
I
I
had
did throw a
the
chair at
consent
Eric.
to talk about it.
But
I think
Geraldo
that
would be amazing. Yeah. Go ahead.
But that was, I felt like that was a perfect example of like a situation where you can feel compersion, but also jealousy about something. But the feelings are just feelings and they don't have to make sense. But these are people that I love and I want them to feel happy, but I also have feelings too.
Well, that also in a way kind of illustrates how a lot of people think of them as opposites.
Right.
And it's easy to see them as related, but they're not necessarily so.
Explain. Think of what as opposites.
Compersion.
Compersion.
Compersion
Jealousy.
is jealousy.
Oh, I'm still trying to understand compersion, but okay.
Maybe thinking of compersion as the opposite of jealousy is an easy way to think of it, but
Yeah.
it's slightly inaccurate.
Okay. Well, okay.
Bad
But say somebody that you like who works in your field, like maybe their book comes out and is really successful. Would you be happy for them?
Oh, I have it. Yes. There's an amazing.
Would you also feel envious though?
Not in this particular case, but I understand.
Okay. I just did just like a Steve Holt, like put both my arms up because I felt like I gave a good example.
If you're enjoying the Pod Pod Cvlt Cast, check out our podcast show notes at www.podpodcvltcast.com or keep up with us on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook at Pod Pod Cvlt Cast and Instagram at Cult with a V. Love us? Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or help us continue to make this podcast possible by becoming a patron. Head over to patreon.com/PodPodCultCast. Remember, that's Cult with a V. Our patrons get access to exclusive content, cool swag, and our exclusive Patreon series, the Cultcast Media Club podcast. Thank you so much to this month's patrons, Jenny, Chip, Maggie, Kate, and Sydney. Thank you for believing in us.
Listen, I think the greatest thing. So I've only been on Instagram maybe 8 months, and like the podcast maybe 6 months, and so it was brand new. My co-host was like, "You'll like it." I was like, "I don't like anything. I won't like," which is totally true. But I went on and I really liked it, and like it was great, and I got to discover more. But I definitely understand where you're coming from, and the best thing about Instagram has been like seeing other people. There's this woman, her name is Jackie Shoemaker Holmes, and it's her handle is at Eating Her Young, and Anna Paquin liked, followed, like promoted her stuff, and I never watched the show, but I know who she is because my girl cried my eyes out. But you know, like it's fun to feel excited for other people.
Right, exactly.
And I get that, and in theory, I get being excited that my husband has like a fantastic orgasm, just to like simplify it.
Yeah.
But I also understand that I don't know. I mean, I am jealous as what? That's not true. I used to be jealous as fuck. And now I kind of get that, like, there are things I want to talk to him about, and there are things I want to talk to my girlfriends about. And maybe there's a sexual aspect there. And maybe it's just that I want to talk to someone who understands my priorities. You know, like, if you don't know what a podcast is, if you don't know what a private practice is, it doesn't help to talk to just someone, even if that person is your person. So.
Well, being jealous isn't bad. Like, you know, it's like having a pain in your knee. That just tells you something's wrong and there's something you should pay attention to. It's fine to be jealous. You know, it's just an emotion, a feeling like anything else.
And what do you do with that feeling?
Well, that's the thing. You have to be really self-searching about what it really means, because jealousy is really just an umbrella term. It's not really a thing of itself, but you have to really be self-searching about what it means, why you feel badly about it, what's causing you to feel badly about whatever this thing is, and what you do with that feeling and with that situation.
So I agree with both things you say, but
it's not going to get any better than that. I'm going to go ahead and check out now.
So, you know, a lot of my jealousy stuff came, for the most part, from insecurity and not feeling good about myself. And then the rest of it comes from feeling like somebody has something that I want and I'm not getting. And then some of it feels like something is being taken away from me. And once I identify where it's coming from, it's usually easier to break down from there. You know, and I think that's what Max is saying, right?
Yeah,
like,
right. And most of my feelings, just because of the way I'm wired, most of my negative feelings in that way, in that realm, are about feeling like I'm losing something, feeling like something is being taken away from me.
And it's scary to feel like that.
So in retrospect, I'm 42 years old. I've probably been
Hey, me too.
Oh, hey, happy birthday. When is your birthday?
October, middle of October.
September. So
happy belated.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm older. So, but I definitely think that a part of my jealousy comes from like a mother-father dynamic, which does not mean everyone's jealousy comes from that. It just means that I think my mother was in particular, you know, wanting to be better, different. I don't know the word.
My mother was very into keeping up appearances and very competitive with other women. Yeah.
The day I defended my dissertation, which is like essentially the doctorate, my mother was like, I remember when I got my doctorate, that bitch never got her doctorate.
Oh.
So there's that. But, you know, I do think we all are trying to get by any way we can. And I
think we reward jealous feelings, or like that feeling of striving and competition, because it's supposed to show how much we value that partnership, how much we value that person or that degree or whatever the case may be. Is right?
It's the
and
same,
so I think
it's the same thing. I mean, whether it be a degree or a partnership, I think we all just want to have something to prove, you know?
Yeah. Something that's special to us, that's unique. And it's hard to see how you could be in multiple relationships that are equally special and invested and unique.
Yeah, Lindsay, I went back and listened to your very first podcast episode.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay, because it was great, because one of the things that you said that really spoke to me as a person was, I give no fucks. And I think that
I kind of say that,
yeah, confidence and jealousy go hand in hand. The more confident you are in who you are, what you want, and what you need, and being able to ask for what you need and respect that people don't always have to give you what you need, the more you're able to handle jealous feelings. So even if the feelings come up, you know what to do with them. And you know how to tell yourself, you know what, like, all right, like, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to go and talk to my friends about this. Just like you said, like, my husband's not the one to deal with this with.
And
I would agree with that, with the exclusion of narcissism.
Wait, are you calling me a narcissist?
No, not at all. Not at all.
You can, it doesn't matter. But no, but I really appreciate that, because one of the toughest things about my marriage is having to learn that I am not going to get everything I need from him. And it's not because he's not a great person or a great dad. It's just that we want different things. And also, like, probably, you know, when you're 23, you don't know what you're looking for at 33, 43.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
One of the justifications, one of the reasons people give about entering into non-monogamous relationships is exactly that thing you're saying of nobody can fill all your needs. And so you stay open to seeking your needs elsewhere.
Maybe.
Which is fine as an explanation or justification. I don't think you really need one. You know, you can just do the life you choose without explaining why you're doing it.
And it leads to this idea that we're just collecting partners until we feel complete.
Yeah.
I don't like that's never, because I've been giving this a lot of thought. I've never thought about that. A couple probably misconceptions I've had is, now I'm trying to think. Like,
while you're thinking, let me throw in something real quick that we try to say every once in a while, is that we as a group, I think I can speak for everybody. We never say that everybody should have non-monogamous relationships. Everybody should be polyamorous, however you want to, you know, whatever label you want to hang on it. You know,
I'm so sad that you guys have to say that.
Well, you know, there are certainly people in the world
I understand why, but
you know,
I'm also so sad that like the closed-minded, whatever, go on. I just think it's sad. I think like you should be able to voice your opinion. I should be able to voice mine, and not be like, I'm right and you're wrong. Yeah.
We had somebody ask recently in a Facebook group if they could debate us on the podcast about monogamy, if they could tell us why monogamy is the right way to do things, and we had to defend our position on polyamory. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that.
Because we don't have a position on
it's a choice.
polyamory.
It's a choice in our relationship. It's not a position. It's a choice. Why would we do that? Monogamy is also a valid relationship choice.
But with that same mindset, it's real easy to be like, yep, we'll see, I win. You can't defend it. I was right.
It's funny. I said this to, you know, earlier, like for me, I don't, I know it wouldn't be for my husband. It could be for me, but for me, it would be a sign that, no, for me, it could be a sign that there was something that I couldn't tell my husband. But I also have female friends, and it's entirely possible I would hook up with my female friends. No one tell my husband.
Right on.
Oh, hell yeah. This just in.
It's not just in, it's laced all over her episodes of her podcast.
Oh, no, I have absolutely made out with women, and I have no problem. I have enjoyed it. It's a sexual fantasy. Oh my God, my husband's going to kill me. But
he don't listen. Keep going.
He's not listening. Just tell us about kissing the women, Lindsay.
Like slowly.
No, but I just don't think that there's. It seems totally irrational to think that one person can give you everything you need in life.
Absolutely, we agree with that.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of my whole take on.
Some people find everything they need in really sustaining friendships,
Yeah.
and that's what's good for them, and that's also fine. I'm not one of those people,
but I agree with that. However, like my podcast co-host, we often joke about the Isle of Lesbos, which is where we're going to go. You know,
yes.
Where is this island, and when can I get a ticket?
I don't know, but I will send you an invite. But like, it's not that way. It's necessarily a sexual thing for us. It's just not my type. It's just that like I think there has to be more than one solution.
Well, one of the things that is important, especially in my relationships, is the fact that my friendships are valued equally to my romantic relationships. Ooh. And my domestic partnership and my romantic partnerships and all of those things have more weight because I have more responsibilities there. But my friendships are just as important in terms of emotional commitment.
My hand is up in the air, but you can't see it. But, yeah.
What is your question?
How do you decide? Like, because there are times when, like when we were setting up, and I was like, I need a login code, and it was my female friends that I that I reached out to, and I was like, who has this? Who has this? And it's tough to decide, like, who do I depend on and who do I don't know. It's easier to depend on a, like a sexual, like yeah, I got nothing.
So,
Why?
well,
Why
for
is
me,
that?
it came down to self-care, and I made a list of like 5 people. Like, I have a list of like 5 people that I call when I have a problem, and then they also call, like, they call me, they text me, they message me. So I know that those people have my back, and they know I have their back, and we're friends, and we talk all the time. And they, for the most part, with the exception of one of them, they're women. And that means that, you know, I guess they're considered my best friends. And those are people outside of the people in this room with me right now. And these people in the room with me, I know that I can call them as well, but I prefer to lean on my friends for emotional things that I don't need to lean on my partners for, because I feel like it spreads it around a little bit.
Right. Yeah. It's really hard to put that responsibility on a partnership that already has a lot else going on. And especially because a lot of our feelings have to do with our partners. Like, who do you talk to about that? Right. Like, I can't talk to Chasten about how I feel about the thing Chasten said to me earlier today.
Why?
You know?
Why?
Well, I mean, when you're in that, okay.
In the
let me
moment.
clarify. Yeah. When you're in that position where you just want to bitch about it, you know, you don't want a solution. You don't want to work it out. You're just mad. You want to bitch
Just
about
in
it.
can you believe this shit?
Yeah.
Kinda.
When you just want somebody to go, yeah, man, it's fucked up. Like, I can't do that with my partner. And actually, I don't do that with either of my partners. I don't go to Hannah and say, like, man, this was fucked up what Chasten said. Because that they have a relationship there too that, you know, I don't want to spoil. I don't want to drop any drops of poison in.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I don't know the answer. Obviously, I don't know what the solution is, but I know that there can't possibly be one person. Like, who
we all
can do
agree with that.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all agree with that. And actually, I'll
Stop
jump a little.
ruining my statement.
Oh, sorry.
You can go on now.
What I was going to say about it is not necessarily just that you're not going to rely on one person for everything. To me, it's a little more subtle than that, in the sense that it's more the idea that you don't have to, that you can spread it around a bit. It doesn't mean that you have to do that you have to go to this person for this thing and that person for that thing. It's just the idea that, or just the opposite of that you have to try to pigeonhole everything into what one person will handle.
That's a really, I love that way of looking at it, because that's a relief. It's
it is. It's a comforting notion to know that it can be one way or it can be the other, but it doesn't have to be either.
I love that way of looking at it. Thank you. Because like, I've been thinking of it as kind of like I have to spread it around so I'm not putting pressure on people. But thank you for changing my perspective on that.
I mean, I have my moments.
You do.
You're going to have a moment later, but can I ask a question?
God, I hope so.
Woo. So I guess, how do you decide? Like, I would love
case by case basis.
Damn it, motherfucker. I think
technically. What is your question?
Nope, still stuck on motherfucker. Anyways, I think that a lot of how I view women and how I view relationships has been based on my parents, for better or for worse. So my question is, how do you decide how to move forward?
Well, you know, the first 4 episodes of our podcast, we each did origin stories, and we talked about... I'm
sorry. I was at the gym. I could only stay there for so long.
But we talked a lot about how, and subsequently we talked a lot about how, you know, our parents' relationships formed our ideas of what relationships are like and how you should treat your partners and stuff. So that's true of everybody, I think. I don't think that's...
Yeah, it's your experiential...
100,000%, yeah.
Yeah, it's relationship modeling.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are we deciding? We're deciding what? How do we decide?
How do we get to polyamory?
Perhaps, but I feel like if we handle it from that angle, we're saying that it's an extreme or it's a bad thing, and really, I think it's just I think it's an honesty.
Well, it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would hate to think that we're all simply reacting against somebody else's view of relationships. I mean, I'm sure we all are in some degrees and in some instances.
But
I'm a rebel.
But Hannah, why would you hate to think that? Because everyone is reacting to like their childhood.
I would hate to think that polyamory is perceived as just a reaction against other people's bad monogamy. Like, I don't think that is all that it is.
But, I mean, because that never occurred to me. So,
well, it is sometimes the case, and is also not sometimes the case. There are some people that get into polyamory as a reactionary kind of. Actually, for me, that was kind of it, because I had been in a very long monogamous relationship, and I was thinking, well, that didn't really work so well. Let me try something different. But that was for me. That's not the way it always is. Now, I also think that a lot of people view it as a kind of in a blanket way, that is what all poly people are, and that's why, which is also
that is
not
just
true.
a rebellion, or it's just, I don't know.
But wait, does it matter if it's, quote, just a rebellion? I mean, if it's something that makes you happy and brings joy into your life, I don't know, like, what are our standards?
What are standards? I mean, I think everybody's standards are different.
Again, case by case basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think we try to present the way that we have relationships as just the way that we have relationships, and that's it. And we try to present the idea that you can do this honestly and healthily, and you can do monogamy honestly and healthily. And you're right, none of it matters. It doesn't matter. You just do what makes you happy because it makes you happy, and it's the person you are.
Agreed, but I think you from that episode that I listened to, I think many of us want more from our relationships, and we go to couples therapy, and we go to whatever it is. People cheat. Like, everyone has the example, the so-called solution. And I think what it comes down to is being honest with yourself.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. But it also comes down to communicating with your partner. I mean, we had an episode we did on jealousy that's coming out in a couple of weeks. And I think half of our advice we talk about is just talk to your partner.
Yeah, use your big boy words.
Just talk to your partner over and over again. And
what are big boy words, and how do you explain
That's a Southern colloquialism.
I say it just to mean, be a grown up and talk.
I like the Southern colloquialism, but I also feel like most of us don't know what to ask for.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
true.
That's very true.
That's a huge problem for me. I do not know what I want out of pretty much any situation. I just kind of bull along and hope things turn out for the best.
Yeah,
well,
and I think
good luck to all of you.
I mean, a relationship between two people is hard enough. When you add in a third person, that's a completely different dynamic. I mean, Max and I have a relationship between us. Hannah and I have a relationship, a friendship between us. Hannah and I are also exes, so there's that thing there too.
I kind of want to ask about that, but I also think like
yourself out.
Go ahead, we're fine. We can talk about it. It's fine.
No, but I also think that we all think it's supposed to be simple, and it's not. Like
it's not.
No, nothing.
Well,
is.
people aren't simple.
Yeah.
Well,
There's
I
a
am
book.
simple, so
Some people are simple.
Some people, you're not simple. You're a psychologist. You're one of the least simple people out there.
No. That just means I'm the most fucked up person,
Yeah, typically. There's a book called Opening Up that is a great. It has a part, it has a workbook portion, and it has examples of different types of open relationships and non-monogamous or polyamorous relationships. And it's a book that I recommend to people that I go through coaching with who ask me that question, like, how do I do this? How do I talk to my partner? And I recommend it to people who haven't talked to their partner yet, who are talking to their partner about opening up or who have already tried it and have fucked it up. It's a book that Max and I read together and we went through the workbook portion. The workbook portion really just goes through creating a relationship contract, and creating a relationship contract or agreement or guideline, I think, is something that can help any couple, regardless of whether you're polyamorous or monogamous or whatever you are, because it's a living, breathing document that allows you to kind of put things down like, okay, who is going to do the dishes? What are the expectations? If you say clean the kitchen, what does that mean? Does that mean just do the dishes, or does that mean
not doing
sweep
the
up the
dishes
floor every night? Right. Me either. I don't do the dishes. That's all Max and Hannah. I plan the meals and clean. I mean, I'm sorry, don't clean. I plan the meals and cook.
Yeah, you don't clean.
Folding laundry, doing the dishes, anything. I suck. I'm the worst partner, but go on.
But I think that one of the things that makes relationships hard is that we all come into relationships with expectations as opposed to thinking of things in terms of hope. If we came into relationships going, I hope for this, as opposed to I expect this, which is a demand, it would make things easier. And also, we don't always come into our relationships having the same lexicon of words. So what love means to me and what monogamy means to me and what dating means to me may not mean the same thing to my partner. And we don't sit down and take the time to define those words. And so the longer we go having different dictionaries in a relationship, the harder it gets to go back and redefine those things. So when you get to the point where you're in marriage counseling and then you go, well, maybe we'll open the relationship to try and fix this stuff. Like, you already have so many bad patterns of communications like going on in your relationship that now adding a new level of things that you have to define, like that's a lot to slap on top of a relationship that's already hurting, right?
I agree. Can I just ask, has any marriage relationship expert ever been like, yeah, open this up? Like,
I mean, hopefully not.
No. Wait, why hopefully not?
Because when you're in crisis is not the time to
right.
do that.
Yeah. It's never the time. I mean, my advice for a relationship that's in crisis, if they're considering seeing other people, I suggest they just go ahead and get a divorce or a temporary separation.
Okay, because that is something, as we have spoken about, that has come up a lot to me. They're like, oh, maybe we'll just do this. And I'm like,
If you want to see other people and your relationship is at a point where your relationship is failing and that's why you're in counseling, and you're not communicating with one another, then you should try a temporary separation. That is my personal opinion, and I am not a relationship counselor. I am just a relationship coach.
Now that we're an hour in, we should say none of us are actually qualified.
Oh my God, we know. It's fine, but I am like a license, whatever. But I don't, I'm not against anyone deciding to live an alternative lifestyle, but I am against, what?
I agree with you.
Oh God,
we're against Band-Aids.
I thought you said "fuck you." I was like, "Oh my God, what did I say?" Which is fine too, but I don't think that this should be I don't think
Band-Aid.
It's a solution. I don't think it's a Band-Aid. I think if you feel comfortable enough, fantabulous.
Yeah,
but otherwise, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody here agrees.
We agree. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
The resolution stands.
All right. Resolution passes. Do not try to fix your marriage by opening it up or swinging or whatever you want to do.
No, it's not a solution. I think it's if you realize
it's not supposed to be a solution. Though.
No, and I agree. I think it's if you realize you are not getting enough of what you need.
Mm-hmm.
But you love your partner, then you should try to find some way. But it's not a cure.
Right. If you love your partner and you realize that there are things that you are needing that your partner cannot give you, the choice is accept that your partner cannot give you those things or end that relationship. The choice is not become polyamorous.
I agree. And I also think we should maybe, hopefully, if you guys like me enough, have a second conversation sometime down the road about how you face that decision.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we could schedule
100%.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like a no. Fuck all of you. But
You have to come to Richmond, Virginia to fuck all of us. I'm sorry. That involves like a plane or train ticket.
all right, I'm in.
It's not in our budget unless you support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/PodPodCast. That's Cult with a V.
But guys, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thank you, Lindsay. I really appreciate you coming on. This has been a conversation with Dr. Lindsay Weisner. Lindsay, hit us with all your social media again so we make sure that our listeners hear it.
I'm exhausted, but fine. At Psych Shrink Mom. My book is coming out in March, and everyone will be talking. No, I'm just kidding.
What's the title of your book again?
At finding 10 Steps Finding Happy, and also at Neurotic Nourishment. But we will be speaking soon. And
Yes.
I really appreciate it, guys. I needed some more information.
Well, thank you so much for asking some great questions. It's been a blast talking to you.
You gave me awful information. I'm just
That's our trademark.
That's actually our brand. So you're welcome.
awful information. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Guys, thank you so much. Let's do this again.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Peace out.
Thank you. Peace out. Bye.
You've just heard the Pod Pod Cult Cast with your hosts Max, Chasten, Hannah, and Eric. Our theme song is Spencer Blues by Lobo Loco. Our break music is by Gabarino on YouTube. We have a listener survey going on right now, and we would love your feedback. If you could take 10 minutes to visit www.podpodcultcast.com/survey2019, we would love to hear from you. Give us your feedback on our episode length, how often we release, and the content that we provide. We want to make the best podcast for ourselves and for you. Thank you so much for listening.